Hi guys, I'm Nito King, this is Rayman, and today we're taking on Mr. Stone's Peaks. Which is exactly as it sounds, our chance to fight the boss. Only 3 levels in. I think all the rest of the worlds in this game only have 3 levels. But not many of them start off with a crying hippie. Oh well, let's ignore him. Turns out we can't go any farther in the level unless we help this guy. And what does he need help with? Well, for some reason his guitar is stuck inside a boulder. I don't understand that at all. And there's another voice clip in the PC version, something like, "Thanks, Rayman. Take this super helicopter power." And what does the super helicopter do? It turns our hair blue and purple. Sorry, I just had to do that. So we can now fly freely around the room as I search for the 2 cages that I have not yet located, which I'm convinced are in this area. Simply because this is the area where I've not found any cages. You never know where the secret spot is to reveal them, as you've seen in the past. Generally not out in the middle of nowhere, though. But this area starts out pretty tame. Just kind of flying around some anti-tunes that don't actually chase you down or anything. And this area just takes a little bit of patience, a little bit of control. Just occasionally tap the jump button to rise a bit higher than you were before. And you should be able to get as close to the spikes as you need to get the tings. Of course, this was something like my 7th time through the level, so I started getting impatient, doing really stupid stuff. Oh, hey, why don't I just stand right between those 2 fish? And I decided to just quit collecting all the tings. Now over there to the left, that's the first cage. It looks like a bottomless pit from the direction you have to approach it, but no, it's actually a cage. The rest of the level is just a matter of knowing when to furiously mash the button to rise faster and when to slowly settle down so you don't hit the spikes under you. It's actually a pretty good place to learn how to use this power. It will be the bane of your existence later on. And thank you, pufferfish, for just appearing out of nowhere. You see those little depressions over there to the right, under these pufferfish? The one right under this health pickup, that's the second cage. I have, in the past, gone down into all of them, except that one. For some reason, I thought I had completely covered them all, so I didn't bother to go down and investigate it that time. So that's the story of how I managed to get through the first area without getting any of the cages. More material for the roundup video, I suppose. But we're not done with the super helicopter yet. This is actually mentioned in the instruction manual, but since nobody reads it, I'm sure people had a hard time figuring out what to do. In fact, it even says the super helicopter power specifically is great for cutting ropes. I don't know why your ordinary helicopter wouldn't do it, but you just have to cut the ropes that are holding those big heavy boulders before the rock pushes you down into the water. And then you've got to wait patiently until the water recedes far enough that there's some place for you to stand. It's tougher than it looks. I think I got really lucky on that one, and I was actually about a couple seconds away from death. The worst part of it is those spikes, which will hit you and prevent you from cutting the rope for a couple seconds. This first cage I managed to get in this level was just embarrassing. But that's what you get when you're determined not to use a walkthrough. And here is where the level actually starts getting hard. Up until now, like I said, not a lot of challenge. But without the super helicopter, you're just relying on your old platforming skills. And we all know how good I am at platforming. Plus, we've got the rising water again, which I don't think we've seen since Swamps of Forgetfulness. Can't really remember too much about that area. Can't get a good punchline out either. Now, if you erase the cloud up here, you can actually ride it up and get onto those disappearing platforms. But I think I missed it somehow or other, so here we go. Kinda hard to miss this cage. And then we form a bridge of disappearing clouds so that we can get over to the next part of the level. And guess what it is? No, seriously, take a guess. More auto-scrolling, more rising water, and another anti-tune that I try to kill only to realize I don't even have to land on his ledge. But you know what we haven't seen any of in this level yet? Yeah, there we go. We had to fight more Discworld trolls. Now, this guy is a weird one because he walks to the right every time you hit him. Well, almost every time. Usually he'll just walk off the right side of the ledge and fall down, but this time he actually ran out of hit points first. Sometimes it surprises me that they even can run out of hit points. But that health is the only thing that's over here. It looks so tempting. You know, maybe a cage, maybe even a 1-up, but no. Just full health. And there we go. That's him walking off the ledge. So, still looking for cages, not finding any. But I am, at the time of recording, lacking my 2020 hindsight. It's painful to watch. And of course, it's also painful to play when this guy shows up. This is probably the worst of all the rock trolls. Because he can be killed, and you pretty much have to. Because notice this entire area is sloping uphill. So unless you hit him right at the beginning and get really lucky and he walks to the left, there's no chance to jump over him. You've just gotta keep hitting him until he dies, or until you die. Probably both. And he just keeps going up. He's always got the high ground. I finally kill him without a hit point to spare. And now we've got snow, which is just as slippery as every ledge in Bandland. And of course we've got fake death traps, which turn out to be our good friend the Ting Magician. I tell you, we can use that 1-up, we can use the health fill-up. We can't use the snow. And I almost lost right there. Fortunately, the clouds were actually acting in my favor for once, and I managed to get it with plenty of time to spare. I mean, the clouds in the last level pretty much never went your way. In that level, they always did. And nice timing on that duck. I wasn't sure which one of these was a death trap and which was safe. Turns out they're both safe. They both lead to the same place. You can't be too careful, because this level gets you into the groove of always falling down, and then you fall down and you die. I'm not kidding. See if you can spot the death trap before I get there. More climbing, more spikes that really aren't very much of a threat at all. And then we get the fun part. Get used to sliding on those icy ledges and ducking under spikes, because we're going to be doing a lot of that. And of course, our good old friend, the boulder. Yeah, I fooled you, that's not a death trap. That's actually where you need to go. Almost done with cages, all the ones that I actually managed to get. think someone wanted me to stand around and watch the Electoons disappear, but nah. The trick is, if you try to hit these boulders, you'll go sliding on the ice and die. So you just need to grab the ledges so that you can get up onto them without sliding, and jump past. Tougher than it looks. That pit down there is the death trap. And this one is the cage. And a bunch of rock dogs. I hate them so much I'm not even going to deal with them. I'm surprised I managed to get through that one without getting hit. And now, here's the fun part. We're going to be chased by a bunch of spikes while trying to dodge obstacles. Sort of like the old 200-meter hurdle, except half of the hurdles are above you. And here's an FU from the developers. You grab that little ledge there to stop yourself from sliding, and you get spiked in the face. But I'm wise to their tricks. So now, you gotta run across these slippery ledges, although we don't have a run power-up just yet. Hint, hint. And that's all of our platforming for the level. So usually when all the cages have appeared, there's one more scene that you have to get through, but no. I'm face to face with Mr. Stone already. And there's the trick to beating him. You can't punch him directly, you have to punch that big upside-down pendulum thing in the middle of the room. And meanwhile, he's going to throw a bunch of rocks at you. Whenever he's holding one, you hit it to make him drop it, and that is the platform you use to get up to the pendulum again. Usually you can duck under those flying chunks of rock. Sometimes you can't. Not really worth taking a chance. You've only got 5 hit points. The good news is that they give you a full health pickup right at the beginning, so you do have 5 hit points every time instead of 3. I guess you could try to leave it up there and just get it later when you're actually low on hit points, but nah, I'd get it right away. And of course, you've got to use the platform a second time so that you can jump over him. So now he's half dead. You may notice that he only has 8 hit points instead of the traditional 12. So when he's down to halfway, he stops throwing the rocks he can stand on and changes his pattern quite a bit. There we go. He shoots one shot across the ground, which turns into a disappearing ledge. Doesn't really make him any harder. You've now seen most of his patterns, and I think this is the last one. Just don't be stupid enough to jump up into the rock, and you're perfectly safe. I died a whole bunch of times against this guy in my first test recording because I didn't know what his pattern was, but once you figured it out, he's little to no threat. Actually kind of an interesting gimmick boss. And the sad part is we gotta do that 2 more times. Let's just appreciate the music a bit, shall we? This may be my least favorite of all the boss music in the game, but not because it's bad, just because all the other ones are so much better. I don't really remember Mosquito's boss music all that much. That one might not be as good as this. But aside from saying, this is my number 1 favorite, number 2 favorite, I'm not very good at ranking things. If I were giving scores out of 10, I'd pretty much give all 9s, 10s, 1s, and 2s, and maybe a couple 5s. So he's finally defeated, and I think most of the video is just this fight. He looks kind of silly like that. And his actual head was just crushed out of existence. It's kind of cruel, don't you think? But we're not done quite yet. We get one more meeting with Batilla the Fairy and her multicolored text. And she keeps talking long after the subtitles are done. Perfect. So now I've got the run power-up, which sounds like it's just a convenience, but it's actually important, because if you notice, I can't jump over the gap. I also can't fall to my death. They made sure that you couldn't die in Batilla's areas. So run, yes, it gets you to places faster, but it also gives you a lot more distance with your helicopter. And yeah, they're gonna make me use that. So there you go, Mr. Stone's Peaks. I'm gonna be going back there again, and beating the whole level again. But that's not nearly as bad as what's coming up next time. Picture City. This is where the game gets hard. See you guys next time, I hope.